How can we use music to make us healthier and happier as we age? I'm Robert Miller. I'm dictating this in September of 2021 as part of a program called Aging Wisely. There are many people like Einstein who found music very important. Those of us who are seniors every day when we wake up, we should probably have a checklist that looks like this. To promote your health and longevity and quality of life, the first thing you should say is, am I eating healthy? Second thing is, what am I doing about exercise? Third thing is, am I getting adequate sleep? Fourth thing is, am I avoiding obvious toxins, cigarettes, excessive sun, alcohol, or even more important, perhaps toxic social media or toxic people. In other words, needless stress. Am I making a social connection today? Who can I reach out to? And then finally, everything you do else for sound mental health. What are the things you do to make yourself happy? And these things would include humor and music. Many people advise music. Lerner and Lowe thought it was a good idea, but there's now advice from neuroscience. There's a lot that we now know about how music affects the brain. We know music goes way back. This is one of the evolutionary components of human beings. You can find instruments back close to 100,000 years. Lots of old people thought that music was important. Plato thought it was the most important thing to teach children. Nietzsche thought it was very important. Life without music would be a mistake. So a few points I want to cover in this talk. We'll start with what is music, what the basics. If you just Google music, it would say something like an arrangement of sounds having melody, rhythm, and usually harmony, or the art of producing pleasing or expressive combinations of tones, especially with those things. This is somewhat limited definition, obviously. Music is in the eyes of the beholder. It may even suggest the purpose of music to express and modulate emotion. This is obviously a very limited definition of the purpose, and you can go much further than that, obviously. So what is music? So John Cage was a somewhat well-known avant-garde composer after World War II. Probably best remembered by most of us that he wrote a piece called 4 minutes and 33 seconds, which was absolute silence. Is that really considered music? Even people who were good with language, like Longfellow, thought music was the universal language of mankind. So music is a good way to communicate. Steven Pinker, the linguist, sort of insulted music in the late 90s when he said it's just auditory cheesecake and an incidental byproduct of evolution. Needless to say, there was a lot of pushback from musicologists. Daniel Levitin wrote this book, This Is Your Brain on Music, and asserts that music is an indicator of cognitive thinking, emotional and physical health, and that evolutionary-wise, it was very advantageous to lead to social bonding. Another thing on the same idea of evolution, the singing Neanderthals, that music is a fundamental aspect of the human condition. It's encoded in the human genome during evolution and is critical to the success of our species. And then Levitin wrote another book, 6 Fundamental Functions, that basically will explain how we created human nature, and that the social bonding, again, is critical, and that music really fits in well. So if you like evolutionary psychology, there are dozens or hundreds of books that make this point, that the cause of our troubles today is clear. The accelerating rate of change in the modern world has outstripped the capacity of our brains and bodies to adapt. And so this cognitive dissonance is spawned by trying to live in a society we're not built for, which is killing us. So, we need to pay attention to what are all the evolutionary forces that are pushing us perhaps the wrong way. And so you come out to language like what evolutionary baggage or legacy are we coping with? So drives that were once adaptive, meaning beneficial, hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of years ago, but now create problems in modern society. The ones we talk about all the time, the drive to mate, create sexual violence, the drive to find food, has led to obesity, diabetes. The fight or flight to deal with predators now causes nothing but stress, anxiety, road rage, hypertension, insomnia. But the good news is the role of music is now all good because there's now even more basically free and always available music. And virtually all the impact of music is a good thing. So music is forever and it should grow and mature with you. So I think a lot of seniors should recognize the kind of music you might have liked when you were younger. This can evolve and change. You don't have to keep playing the old songs over and over. And so music and the human brain and music therapy, there's now fields of music therapy where you can try to use music to target your health. What do we learn from that? UCSF has a whole branch called Neuroscape that's using sophisticated neuroscience and technology and very sophisticated brain imaging. And so they're trying to stimulate the brain with custom designed video games to improve your attention, working memory, and goal management. And so they did a study with 70-year-old patients to see if it would improve their brain attention and working memory. And they found that in general, our multitasking performance just goes straight downhill from your 20s down into your 70s. But if you can stimulate the brain properly, you can bring that all the way back up to a 20-year-old. So music is a way to stimulate the brain from multiple different directions. And again, it's totally non-toxic and free. So if you look at all the literature on music therapists, all the things that they think they can now heal or treat. And so again, it goes back, way back, Pythagoras, 500 BC or so, was the first one to use music to help with physical and emotional maladies. Babies in their third trimester in utero are already able to detect sound, both speech and music. And so after birth, they'll respond differently to words and music they heard in utero. So they even have memory of this. And it facilitates speech and language if you expose them to these sounds. Newborns can detect beat and rhythm in music, and it's fun to watch little babies jump around with music. You can use music and rhythm to help stroke patients or Parkinson's. There's evidence, again, from an evolutionary point of view, that music was critical, like sea shanties, to help people function as a group and coordinate their activities. Music can be used to access the brain of someone with autism or a stroke. Most of us use music every day routinely to provide some sort of comfort, relaxation, motivation. So we all know this. We're already using music when we need to relax or when we need to perk up our emotions. And then the list of music therapy opportunities and benefits, it's a long list. I won't go through this in detail. Again, emotional changes, sense of control, anxiety, stress reduction, pain relief, even emotional intimacy. There are obviously music with a lot of lyrics that maybe help people communicate in ways they couldn't really do on their own. And other data on the benefits of music therapy, improving healing, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a tool that's only going to grow. More and more hospitals and rehab programs will offer music therapists. And most music schools now often collaborate with health institutes to try to establish a whole field of this. So this is going to grow. And back to Levitan, so he says you can use science not to demystify the arts, but reinvigorate them. Means, in other words, he's meaning science is now showing there was real value in a lot of these arts and music. It's not wiping them out. It's finding out how why they were so effective and why Mother Nature has kept them around. And again, music will activate every area of the brain that's so far been mapped out. And you can synchronize the neurons of the brain, the firing, and that'll improve athletic performance and will bond people together. The music is separated when it first comes in into multiple separate areas of the brain, and then these are combined again, and that's a good exercise for the brain. Similarly, studies have shown benefits on neurochemicals. So pleasurable music will release dopamine. Soothing music when you're stressed or sad may release prolactin. Listening to music, pleasurable music will increase your immune system. IgA and NK killer cells can go up and lower your cortisol level. There was a trial on pre-op anxiety prior to surgery and found that music worked better than Valium in relaxing people. There is evidence that if you learn to play a new instrument after 50, it will delay dementia. You can lower your blood pressure. There's an argument to be made that baby boomers should particularly take advantage of music because during our time, there was a confluence between all the new technology, FM radio, LP, records, etc. At the same time, there were innovative new types of music and there were strong political connections to the music. So if anybody should have a soft spot for music, it should be us aging baby boomers. You can synchronize your brain again, and this bonding effect, if you have a crew team or a dance class, will actually release oxytocin and have a bonding effect, trusting effect. Your spin class, everybody will be on the same page. And again, music is one of the last things to go in memory, so you can take advantage of music to access people who have a memory problem. The AARP created a whole research program on music, and I'll summarize a few of the bullet points from that. Again, same things I've already mentioned. It's been shown music will stimulate the brain, multiple areas of the brain, help the parts of the brain work together. And there's now good imaging, particularly functional MRI. And you can actually expose people to music while they listen and do a functional MRI and see all the different parts of the brain light up. So it's quite diffuse. And then both sides of the hemispheres are involved. So it's not just right brain. People colloquially say, well, I'm a right brain guy. But both lobes, hemispheres of the brain respond to music. And the type of music makes a difference. So if it's melodic or dissonant music, it will affect the brain differently. Whether you're listening, playing, learning, or composing music will affect the brain differently. And they're identifying the parts of the brain that do what have you. Temporal lobe may be pitch, cerebellum, rhythm, timing, movement, your amygdala, emotions, your hippocampus, memories, the brain's reward system will prolactin. You'll get all these things from the brain. And even people who are tone deaf now, you can do the imaging and show that they hear the sound, but they don't connect to higher levels of the brain. So they really are tone deaf. Also, the difference between consonants and dissonance. So bad sounding chords or hitting the wrong note. So it's a fundamental feature of music that there is harmony. And since the time of Pythagoras, there were certain chords that sounded more pleasant, an octave, a perfect fifth, a fourth. Leonard Cohen talked about that as secret chord, fourths and fifths and minor falls that resonate to the ear and may have, spiritual significance. And so sure enough, if you do brain mapping and see how the brain responds to consonants, good sounding chords, or dissonance, odd sounding music, there's sort of a musical appreciation part of the brain, and there's a psychoacoustic or sensory part of the brain. That's what the brain is doing on its own, almost without you. And so sure enough, the musical part of the brain where you're listening is culturally determined. So the type of music you've been exposed to will affect whether you like some of these chords or not. But that other part of your brain, the sensory part of the brain, is culturally invariant, means it will either listen to those chords and like them or not like them, whether you were musically trained to accept them or not. So even a rodent or bird or a monkey or an infant will know a bad chord from a good chord. So there's two different things going on in your brain. Also, again, memories and emotions can be tapped into, mental well-being. Any style or type of music can be beneficial. So you don't want to be a music snob. Bob Newhart had this crack about country music. I don't like country music, but I don't mean to denigrate those who do. And for those sort of people who like country music, denigrate means to put down. So you shouldn't make fun of other types of music that you're not familiar with. There may be real value there. And it may be good for your brain to expose yourself to that. So Oliver Sacks, the famous neurologist, had a Nova episode on this. And he admits he always liked Bach music, but never really warmed up to Beethoven. So he went in a functional MRI and listened to one of his favorite Bach pieces, and his whole brain lit up. And then he listened to a Beethoven piece, and almost nothing happened. But they did the study twice, which is interesting. Then they played a piece of Bach that he wasn't familiar with, and Beethoven he wasn't. He didn't know which was Bach and which was Beethoven. But it turns out his brain knew the difference. When it played Bach, his brain lit up. So you do have different tastes, and your brain will respond differently to the different types of music. And again, if you're a music snob and you only like classical, you may be shocked to find out that most young people listen to something called R&B and hip hop and rap and what have you. It's terrible music, best I can tell, but we should try to learn to appreciate all the different types. And then playing music or using it in the social connection is very good. And so if you play with your friends or group or even sing in the church choir, this adds all sorts of social benefits and is good for your mental health. You can motivate movement. You can learn new songs is good for you. It allows for emotional reactions or improvements. You can manage your stress. You can even lower your blood pressure. You can help yourself sleep. The list goes on and on. So in summary, you would say for seniors, the great benefits of music, it's a social activity. You can reach out to other people. It's a mental health benefit. The most common things that us old folks worry about, depression or anti-anxiety. It's a neurocognitive stimulant. It may help your memory. That's the other thing we worry about. It's good physically, playing an instrument, dancing, moving around, helping your cerebellum, your balance and rhythm. That's all good stuff. And then intellectual, we should all be lifelong learners. You can learn a lot from music, music theory, biographical, historical, cultural events about the culture, the composers. There's a lot in music. And so even people who like this more abstract aspect to music, Huxley, who was a good writer, said after silence, that which comes nearest to expressing the inexpressible is music. So there's this higher level abstract nature to music. Leonard Bernstein said the same thing. Because of the far-reaching metaphorical powers of music, you can get into this unnameable, uncommunicable area that only music can reach. So there's a lot going on there. So again, back to the AARP study, their recommendations: try to find a way to incorporate music in your life. Try to share your tunes that you liked with other people. Try to get into movement if you can. That serves multiple purposes. We have a balance problem as we get older, a fall problem as we get older, and a social isolation, loneliness problem as we get older, and this can deal with all those. Enjoy listening to familiar music. That brings back a lot of good memories and emotional associations, but then also try to get into new music. That's another brain stimulant and can be very beneficial. And use music to help exercise. Again, we all need to push ourselves to exercise more. Music can be helpful. And if you have hearing problems, get your ears checked. It's not going to work if you can't hear it. And try to make music yourself or with other people. Consider joining a group of some sort. And again, use music for your mood. And there was a good study from, again, UCSF by another neuroscientist on improvisation. So he put a jazz pianist into a functional MRI and first had him play scales that he memorized and then improvise. And then he had him play a jazz tune they memorized and improvise. And the brain changes, turns off and on when you're trying to do improvisation. And what was sort of interesting about it was when you improvise, you have to turn off the self-monitoring part of your brain that says you're not playing the right notes in order for you to activate your more creative part of the brain. So it's this yin and yang that's going on. So again, try to improvise now and again. It's good for your brain. And of course, the advantages now in the 21st century is music is everywhere, and a lot of this is free and available all the time. The average radio station has about 3,000 songs, and 80% of the time they're playing the same 300 over and over. But if you use Spotify, it has 70 million tracks. So If you can find at least one tune you like out of 70 million, then I don't think you're trying very hard. And Spotify has all sorts of other things. You connect with other people, share your playlists. You can forward the Spotify to speakers and do all sorts of things. I like Spotify because every week it recommends new music to me. I'm always learning about new composers. They had recommended Finzi, and I found he had a lot of stuff that I liked. You look at Finzi, it'll tell you what other people like, whichever are most popular songs, which are most popular albums, which other composers that you may not have heard of sound like Finzi. So you're learning a lot. And the other things on Spotify, you can find music for sleeping or relaxing or mindful meditation, et cetera, et cetera. You can use the free version. I just use the free version, or you could pay for this. YouTube Music is huge. It has a library, 60 million. You can find almost anything on YouTube. YouTube has the advantage, of course, that it has a video. So sometimes, particularly classical music, it adds a lot to the music to see the video that goes along with it. And again, almost anything you want, you can find on YouTube. If you live in Tampa Bay, the classical music station, WUSF, split off the classical about a few years ago, but on the radio, you can't pick this channel up very well. So if you simply go online to WUSF.org, you'll see they switched over to this channel. You click there, and then you'll get the classical music channel. You can see the playlist. You can listen to the music. You can put it in any of your devices and listen to that. Most people know if you don't know the name of a song, you can use the internet or an app like Shazam to tell you what the song is. There are multiple ways to do that now. The other thing they recommend is see if there's a local group you could join in the St. Petersburg area. There's a group called Second Time Around Marching Band. Some of my friends are members of this. You can go in if you really want and march around. You can try to audition for some of the community orchestras. Get out your old violin and see if you can practice enough to get into one of these local community civic orchestras. That's good fun. So in summary, I would say this. We are designed to enjoy music. It provides a good brain workout like cross training to exercise the whole brain and the connections. We should all do this as part of our general daily health program. Number two, music is non-toxic and non-prescription, and is a good treatment for the most common mental health complaints: stress, anxiety, and depression, and then concerns about memory. And loneliness as well. You can impact your mood, et cetera, using music. So it's all good. And then finally, music can express feelings beyond and better than language. So if you're a little timid, some of these abstract things you can bring out in music. Because of the relationship between history and cultural norms in music, you can learn a lot about history and culture from music, as well as I say, the more abstract or music theory components, if you like that, if you're a science nerd. And you don't want to end up like Disraeli. He always looked a little glum to me. And he said, most people die with their music still locked up inside. And so they're afraid to ever really express. I guess if you were in Victorian times, you would kind of keep these things to yourself. And then another smart guy, Darwin, what did he say? If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read some poetry and listen to some music at least once every week. So Darwin, obviously a smart guy and thoughtful. And now, as I say, we have free, unlimited streaming music available to all of us. So one of the many things that we should all take advantage of as seniors.